everyone. Welcome back. Remember that we are recording our meetings and it's going to our YouTube channels in case you do not want your name or your face to show. Just remove your face. Okay. Today we are going to continue to study the book Alert by Joanna de Angelis, the Spirit Joanna de Angelis. We are in lesson 3. And the lesson is so important. And wording, phrasing that Joanna de Angelis uses is quite very hard that I decided to show it to you today in both versions, Portuguese and English, for those who read the Portuguese and perhaps would understand it better if it is in Portuguese. Okay, so I will read for you. Let me put it bigger here. The lesson is called Always with God. Okay. The able mind which weave careful and detailed pernicious plans aiming to enjoy success in unfortunate enterprises cannot escape the unpredictable due to the impossibility of achieving perfection. Thus, the unpredictable is the divine presence that surprises the infraction. The instant elaborate actions with minutiae and sophistications are put into practice cannot be realized without the occurrence of the unanticipated, which in its surprising expression will undo a large movement of forces. The unsuspected can always be considered as divine intervention. The execution of a well-organized project with its malefic implications will face the unexpected. The unexpected frustrates all or only some parts of the effort put into service by humanity's inferior passions. The unexpected should be taken into consideration as the occurrence of the divine workings for order. Okay, did you understand all that? Why is it so important for us to understand this lesson? Because here, Joanna de Angelis is trying to explain to us that God is always present and nothing happens without the approval, so to say, of God. And many times when we are seeing ill will initiatives being elaborated in order to bring harm and turmoil and problems into the world, at the last minute, divine providence can interfere and put a halt to all of it, not allowing those actions to take place. Anyone would like to say something up to this point?
So, Josiah, so everything that's happening now in this outside world, we're going through this pandemic. Nothing is without the approval of God, right? Just as you explained.
Actually, that's why I think this lesson is so important.
Yes, yes. That's, I'm a little confused. So wait.
It is with the approval of God,
Okay.
probably to avoid a greater evil,
Ah.
which is something that we heard
Mm.
some spirits hinting,
Mm.
and spiritists, even Divaldo, uh, that just hinted, okay?
Ah.
It's not that he or somebody else stated that. That this pandemic is actually preventing something much worse to happen in the world.
Ah.
So it is a bad thing,
Mm.
but with, I mean, like, when sometimes, you have kids and they are acting out so much.
Yes.
The only thing you can do nowadays, because you're not going to beat them, is let them or something. Nowadays, the only thing you can do is to put them in timeout.
Right.
You don't like to do that. It is not nice. It is not nice to be in timeout, but it's much better than what was happening before. So it's like we are in timeout, in order not to continue doing the things that we were doing before.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when I read this lesson, I said, that's why I wanted to put it in also in Portuguese for those who will, because it's very hard. I even think
Yes.
there is one, I think the second phrase here, this one that stopped the instant elaborate. Andre, I'm going to need your help again with this one here, because it seems that there is a word, a verb missing, maybe even you, Barbara. The instant elaborate actions with minutiae sophisticated are put into practice.
Yeah, I
They,
think it's missing too.
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Then if you could help me with that, what would be? They
Yeah.
cannot be realized, perhaps, right? Anyway, so
Yeah.
that's why I thought it was so important, because and Joanna de Angelis is going to explain. Okay, I just stop it here because here, just for us to have this discussion about understanding what is going on right now as well, and other things that has happened. So for us to say God is not watching or God is unfair, uh, it's always under our perspective. As we always point out here, we have our free will. Okay, we have our possibilities, we have our decisions, and is very much again like parents. You see your children fighting, and you keep observing to see if they come to terms with that by themselves.
Right.
Then they don't, and then you go and say, you better stop.
Mm-hmm.
They continue doing that. You go for the second time, for the third time, the fourth time that you're already screaming,
Right.
the fifth time that you continue screaming, the sixth time that you're going to put them in timeout.
Right.
So it's completely unfair on our part to say God is being bad to us, because it's showing us with, like for instance, the way we abuse from planet Earth, with all the things that are happening with planet Earth, and it's showing us, watch out, you can face in the future a shortage of water, or you can hit the planet just because of, you're now destroying the trees and all of those things, you're polluting your oceans, you're using too much pesticide in your food, all of that is going to make an impact in your physical body. And we are not thinking about it. We are just thinking about short-term compensations. Like, if I put a fertilizer, I'm going to have, much more and bigger strawberries than they naturally are. People, you see those kind of things, okay? This is not my area of expertise. Of course, I just know the basics about the ecology and etc. But you see, those are the things that are happening. Like, don't be too greedy. Leave this land to this country instead of getting into war, because this war is just going to foment more war and this and that. But our greed, our desire for immediate compensation, for compensation that is more related to matter, to material life than anything else, uh, uh, comes to deaf ears, because then I don't want to listen to that. And so, a big war comes, and then where is God that didn't stop that?
Right.
I mean, and a pandemic comes, and where is God that is not, stopping that? Maybe, like, we always say, it's a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
Right? I guess now that I just said that, unfortunately, it was a dream. I dreamed last night that I look at the New York skies, and I could see so many stars. And I said, look, we can even see stars in New York City now. The pollution has reduced it so much. But now I realize it was only a dream. It was, wow, now I'm disappointed. Anyway, so this is what is important here. At the last minute, something may happen. The hand of God will come.
See.
Even in relation to us, to our deeds, something that will happen that will call our attention or will refrain us for giving continuity to plans that may not be in our best interest and others as well. And it's when at the last minute you have all set and done, and you cannot go ahead with that.
Okay.
And so I think this pandemic is actually, it could be considered one of the examples of what Joanna de Angelis is telling us in this chapter. Anyone would like to comment something else, or should we continue reading a little more?
Orlando did a little note in the message.
Yeah, I never had this because it doesn't fit my screen here.
No worries. He said, being God, could he be immune to comprehend the human heart and suffering of humanity?
I think if you would say the opposite, I would agree with you. Like, could human understand the love of God and how much God can be, in a way, for lack of a better word, sad for seeing us do what we are doing, and hurt? So I would just change the words. I would put God in the place of humans and humans in the place of God, because humans, we don't know what is love yet. We don't know what is the love of God. We have, or a love like, agape, as we learn in the Greek word. We know what they call the love in Greek word, that is philia, that is more related to how we feel, even in terms of possession and jealousy, exclusivity and pettiness, and more related to matter than actually to love of the soul. So I think the answer as it is no. And if we put in the other way around, then we would say yes, because the love of God is incomprehensible to us. Okay, let's go ahead. It is certain that these apparent successes occur in numerous times in such unfortunate events. When successes occur, advantageous benefits can be extracted. If well applied, they yield interest of progress and elevation for those who suffer this painful injunction. Everything, when faced with the wise laws of life, obeys a superior plan, even when it seems to conspire for evil. The benevolent reaper always extracts a great good from an evil. So here, it's something that if we look on the short term, is always very, very hard for us to understand and even accept, and even not to question the goodness and fairness, justice of God. But when we look at history, we will see many examples of things that have happened, even sometimes wars, contention, that has brought benefit, or even natural disasters that has brought benefits to the place, to the land, and to the inhabitants. So, but it's always hard to say, because especially when the events are too close to our time, to the present, to the current civilization. And if we mention that, it could be very insensitive on our part. But even, if we look how civilization has developed because of, natural disasters. So we have regions that suffer a lot of problems with volcanoes, that they came up with scientific devices that now can uh, tell them well in advance if there's going to be some problem with the volcanoes, areas that can be too much flooded. So they develop, technology or architectural designs that will be able to help them facing um, hurricanes or floods or all of those things. And even in terms of the weather, I remember one day, once I went to Las Vegas many years ago, when it was not just Disney World for adults. And we were on a city tour, and then the guy said, look at the roofs of the house, because of the high temperatures here, the roofs are flat, because I don't know why. In this way, it maintains the houses um, colder. And if you go to regions that you have too much snow, if you have a flat roof, it can, go down. So you have the roofs like in a V shape. All of those developing actually the intelligence of humankind, is strategy and all of that, because you have to deal with you know, nature per se, right? And so, in a way, it brings several developments, and many of those things that are even utilized by our well-being. And so this is sometimes also how, even from something that shouldn't have occurred, but it did because of us, not because of God, because as we always like to remind people, um, human beings, spirits connect to earth, have chosen a more difficult path from themselves. From what we heard, we learned from spirits, not all other places on the universe has chosen the same path as we did, because we do not need to learn and to grow through suffering. We can learn just through experience. We have imposed a harder path on us that is not necessary. So, but even then, like they say here, even when we look at apparent successes of the evil, at the end, there will always be benefit. Comments, questions?
Would you like to say something, Orlando? You can say.
Yes, I would like to type something. Can you hear me?
It's a bit too loud. Maybe
Okay.
it's hard.
Oh, okay. How about now? Yes?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah.
It came to mind whether would there be a time when the spirit world will in the name of compassion, would those people that I thought they were going to be not reincarnated, but resuscitated. Could they send those?
I don't know if I'm understanding too well. Are you, Vera? Perhaps written is better. So, can you write? Sorry, Orlando. It gives so much echo in your voice.
Yes,
I'm really having a difficult time understanding.
yes. Okay.
Sorry about it.
No. Okay.
Anyone else? You see, this is another thing that we have to think, and I know it's hard, and normally I don't like to talk about it, but there are many things in the world that we do not understand. Many things that we see as suffering, as injustice, and sometimes, they just represent the bitter medicine that we have to take in order to heal ourselves. Again, but even when we know that and we understand that, in the Gospel according to Spiritism, there is a passage that say that it's not up to us to refrain from helping, from doing whatever we can to help, in case we can reduce the suffering, the troubles of someone. And we see that in some cases, our help will help. In other cases, it will not, which means, again, that it's not in our hands, but it's not on our hands as well to think that we just shouldn't do anything just because we are not seeing all the results we would like to see. Because this is going to depend on the need of the person that is going through things to use this experience for their betterment. Okay, so let's see. Could the spirit world send those spirits that wanted to resuscitate to another planet and not reincarnate here? It is happening already, okay, Orlando. There are many spirits that have been relocated because again, we always use those comparisons. It's like when you are in school, and let's say you are in 8th grade, but definitely you're not doing well, let's say in 8th grade, and help will come, private tutors in the form of people trying to help and push you to advance. But for whatever reason, the person is not catching up. So what happens? We will say you have to remain on 8th grade while your colleagues are going to go to 9th grade. Okay, so this is what has been happening in each and every world. It's not only here on Earth, you know. So Earth is advancing, its inhabitants are advancing. It's time for us, of course, we are not talking about, you know, just 1 year. We are talking about, I don't know, perhaps at least 500 years. That have been 500 years that we are in 8th grade, and now it's time for us to go to the 9th grade. So if you haven't done anything in 500 years, it's not in this last year to 2020 that is basically non-existent, right? We're almost in August. Can you believe that? Where did the year go? I mean, my year stopped in February, basically, right?
Yeah.
And soon it's going to be September, and then you went from, you know, February to September. Anyway, so it's not in just 1 year, 10 years that we are going to be able to catch up. And so many spirits have been relocated to other places where that are much more in tune with them than what in the situation that planet Earth hopefully is going to be. Let's see the complementation. Look like I'm wasting my bringing a case against the spirit world today. Yeah, well, you are, Orlando. I'm sorry to say that, but we should bring a case against ourselves, okay? Then you would not be wasting our time. I know this is not what we want to hear. We want to blame someone. We want to say, why are you not doing anything? You know, listen, I'm here, I'm suffering. And do you remember that message? Every time I think about that message, I feel like crying already. It's the footstep on the sand, where there are do you know this message, Orlando? And that there's this guy that is looking at his life and the footsteps on the sand, and he looks at the sand, and there are 4 marks from 2 people, and it comes to some points in his life that there is just 1 set of print, and then he realized that the 1 set of print is exactly happened on the hardest times he faced in life. And then he looks at Jesus and do like we've been doing here. Where were you? How come you're not there helping me? And did you take a break or something, you know? And Jesus said, well, in those times you were so affected that I have to carry you in my lap. So this is what the spirits are doing, even when we are messing up completely and blaming them and screaming and throwing tantrums like, you know, spiritual children that we are. The spirits are there to help you. And the more we allow them to help, the more we will see the difference, you know. The more we will see this divine intervention. Let me read the next one again now. Divine interventions in the same order occur when one is operating towards ennoblement. So first we were talking about the bad things. Now we were talking about the good things. A well-established plan which is put at risk suddenly will gain an unexpected assistance, turning into a superior investment of success. A noble task that is given precise attention and becomes endangered at an unfortunate instant is still sustained by an unsuspected assistance. Thus, it continues due to the guidelines of merit. A disaster that would occur at a certain time relies on unexpected occurrences which stops the tragedy and saves the situation. So here, Joanna de Angelis is saying, even when we are giving ourselves to good enterprises, sometimes they can be very challenging. Let's talk about, works of charity, for instance. We lack people, volunteers. We lack money. We lack assistance from the government. So many things, right, that happen in order for us to do this kind of work. But the least we expect, something good happens. Let's say a noble soul that has the possibility of start helping with their work, with their financial resources, with their network, with things that can reverse the situation that we see ourselves. So and it's easy for us. I mean, it's not uncommon for us to hear people saying, "Oh my God, I don't know, a miracle just happened. I was sure that we would not be able to do that. And at the last minute, something happened." And this something happened is always God, is the presence of God that will come and say, now you're doing, a good work, and you didn't give up, you strived, you did everything that was possible to be done on the material perspective. So you deserve the celestial help. Okay. Okay, so surrender your life to God and trust in God with no reservations. Bring forth your very best, allowing yourself the joy of serving tirelessly. No evil shall triumph, regardless of how much one tries to shelter it. There is no good that cannot be done in an harmful situation. Whoever consciously surrenders themselves to God, in God, they will move and act, firmly marching towards God. So when we have faith in God, and here we have to understand that when we are talking here, follow God, trust God, it means the divine laws, what God represents. We are not talking here about a deity like we use it to worship in in ancient times. I'm not talking here about Zeus and Jupiter and all the other deities that we had in the polytheist times that we have substituted just for one that is God. We have to eliminate this idea, but the thing is, what are we going to put it into place? We still don't know, because whatever we can imagine, it is still not this. But it's not a man. It is not someone you know, like those old gods of the mythological era. Here, it means to trust the ability to go along with the divine laws that we already have a hint of what they are. So, and never thinking that evil will triumph. They may win some small battles that to us, from our limited perspective, seems that they won the war, but they will not. Evil will never prevail in relation to goodness. And even when we are facing a very difficult situation, there is always some good that can be taken from it. Like, for instance, you know, this pandemic. Now we are in the eye of the storm. It's very hard for us to make any kind of analysis of what is going on. And like we always repeat, we are all in the same storm, but not necessarily in the same boat. There are people that are facing it with much more difficulty than others. But I think overall, when, you know, in 10 years' time, perhaps, or more, we will look back and you will say, that was a time in my life that I really felt that I have grown so much. That it was the turning point in so many of my concepts, my habits, or things that I thought I had to change, but I could not up to that point, you know. So again, we have to understand that God, meaning it's in command, and it's nothing is happening. It's like, you know, I don't play chess, but I know more or less. It's like playing chess. You make a move that it seems that you are going to lose your queen. But along the way, that move that you sacrifice some of your pieces will actually lead you to win the game. You see, so sometimes it's more like this. And yeah, I don't know if it's a good analogy, but just for us to have something to think about it. Any comments? Okay, the footprints. Thank you for putting the footprints here, Marisol. My precious child, I love you and will never leave you, never ever, during your trials and testings. When you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I cared you, and I feel like crying. Tears came to my eyes. I mean, it's, if you want to make me cry, you just show me this message. It's always like, or when I have to tell the story of Mother Teresa.
Oh, yes.
That when she helps that man, and the reporter is horrified and say, oh my God, I wouldn't do that for $1 million. And she said, neither would I, only for love. God, this is so powerful. It moves me so much. Any comment or question here?
Yeah, what I think is that we always, we see the pandemic so big, and then we say, where is God? Why that is happening? But if we see in a small micro size, and we see all the families, the ones who goes to the hospital, and then we have the doctors, the medicines, the technology. We saw so many companies changing their way of working to bring the respirator, the thing to help them to breathe. So we see those in those a little piece of God, because He is allowing them to study and to change things so fast to help others. So I think in this transformation, it's came to my mind that the earth is not completely done. It's still building for the best. And I don't know, that's my feeling. And if we stop to see outside and say why that is happening, and say, thanks God, that's happening. Thanks, I have this, I have that. All the little things, you know, people going to work every day to make the light comes to our house. And so we can be connected with the technology to be together. Those are things I don't care, but but if I don't have internet connection, I will be like, how I'm gonna do work, how I'm gonna. So it's so beautiful because we can feel the presence, we can feel the help and everything in God's love. That's the way I see. And that lesson is so beautiful. It's shows us that part of surrender your life to God is, yes, because we thought we have the power to do things, and now we see that it's not depend on us. We have to wait. We have to believe that it's going to be better. We have to do our small part on this game, and to help others. Even if I cannot go outside, even inside the house. So yeah, he's everywhere. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful lesson.
Orlando, is the coronavirus testing people's faith except for the spiritists? It's testing everyone, and I think even more the spiritists, because the spiritists should have more faith, you know. So, but they are going through struggles, through a lot of struggles, even if you have this kind of understanding that we have. So I think it is testing everyone's faith. But not only that, it is testing, but at the same time is bringing us lots of opportunities, like we said, to review our, you know, values, to review ourselves. And so it has been a phase of transformation, an invitation for transformation for us all, whether you have faith or not. I would say that, of course, in any crisis that we may face in life, when you have a faith, it's going to be so much easier for us to deal with that. If you don't. So that's, I think, the only difference, you know. A crisis and it affects everyone, but it will affect less those that have firm faith. Soraya, you were going to say something.
Yes, I was going to say, just like Vera beautifully explained, that I heard the other day in the news, I don't know if he was a scientist or just a doctor who said something profound. He said, you know, we don't know what we've done, why we've come to this pandemic, and why weren't we ready for things that we should have known. And he said something really profound. When I heard him say that, he said, we have to look deep inside of ourselves. What is going on with each of us? What do we have to do? So it's an opening door right there, going through all these hardship, you want to call it, and yet you stop and you think, and this person is saying, you know we've done something here that's not right. So we have to look into it. What is it that we have to do? I mean, just the questions alone, I think is very important, because there's no pride there. They're saying something is wrong here. What do we have to do? So, you know, whatever is going on here is something good. We have to look at that side. There's a lot of, you know, when you meet people outside, you hear, you know, comments of, you might be on a line or doing something, and you hear everyone speaking of the negative side. But I wish I could just come out and say, listen, it's not what we think. It's this way. This is a good road. We have to change ourselves. There's something going on in this life. Let's see if we can do a little more. Not so much complaints. Because Joanna de Angelis is beautiful about saying complaints. Stop complaining so much. Yeah. Don't complain. Keep going. and see what we can do. Look at ourselves. There's so much work to be done. So it's not what we think this pandemic, oh yes, there's suffering, yes, there is. But in order for us to get to a plateau of betterness, we have to go through this. And our God is there, there looking over us. So we got to get to this point of understanding that we're not alone. We're not alone.
And you see, while you were talking, that's what I was thinking. This is definitely an invitation to discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Because why are we facing that? Because of lack of discipline. And people in many countries, and still in this country, did not realize that they have to have discipline. They still going out like crazy, I couldn't care less about myself, about others, and not respecting the recommendations from science, from governments, from common sense, because come on, we saw this happening in China. Okay, whether they didn't disclose all the information to prevent this pandemic, it is not what we are going to be talking about it. But after it starts going in other countries and happening in other countries, we still see people in countries saying, no, this is just there. Come on, how is just there? It's getting into the 5 continents. And still today, we are already living the second wave, and people is not humble themselves enough to say, we have to change as a collectivity. I mean, it's really complicated. So let's read the last one here. In the domain of your superior aspirations, when despondency starts to whisper discouragement for you to abandon your task due to the seemingly multiplied difficulties, persist and count on the unforeseeable. The unsuspected and the unexpected will come to your rescue. Those that behave poorly, although they do not expect it, will not escape their indiscretions. Continuing counting on God always. Oh, that's beautiful as well, right? I mean,
that is beautiful.
Not a single thread of hair is going to fall without God knowing. So if we are behaving poorly, sorry, a law of cause and effect is going to catch us. If we are doing what is good, good will come as well. But I think here, in terms of, resilience, not giving up, it doesn't mean that we are not going to succeed just because we are facing obstacles, especially if we are on the path of righteousness. It's just a matter of time. Just a matter of time. Do you remember that there is a little story that every now and then they show it at the internet, a guy that was doing, alpine sports, like, hiking, right? Climbing mountains.
Hiking.
And then there was this snowstorm. And he was caught on that, the wind, etc. He was thrown away from the mountain, but he's still holding on the rope. And then, he prayed, and he heard a voice saying, "Release the rope." And he says, "I'm not going to release the rope. If I release the rope, I'm going to die. I'm here climbing a mountain. I can't see anything. you know, 5 fingers from my face. If I release the rope, I'm dead. And so he decided not to release the rope. And the following day, people found him a meter away or a feet away from the ground, frozen to death. So this is where this comes to us saying, trust in God. Sometimes you have to release the rope to survive, and it's the solution is just there. But because we do not have enough trust and faith, we don't do that. Of course, the story is much better than the way I just told you. Okay, I never remember all those stories the right way, but yes, it's Marisol, yeah.
Yeah, yes, no, it's interesting. What's coming to me listening to what we've been discussing this morning and some of the comments is something that we study in the integral human being.
Yeah.
When Joanna de Angelis talks about the conditioning that we suffer from as human beings. And I think that is playing such an important role right now with everything that we are going through, because it's like we have been conditioned for so many generations. Socially, culturally, so on and so on. And now we're having such a hard time breaking from that and finding like a organic flow or like this is saying, we're having a hard time surrendering to this new flow of life and of God. You know, what is it that we are to receive at this moment in time, right?
Yeah.
I do like I do have my view. It's obviously very limited, and also it's been many years I don't follow anything that is happening into the world. I was probably the last person to know there was a pandemic. It was a choice for my mental health. But in my limited perception, I do remember, I don't know if it was Emmanuel or if it's somewhere in Kardec, the spirits say that sometimes less than a lesson, this is just that pushing for progress. Because I've been thinking about how many good things happen, in the sense that they might seem small, but it brought so much more progress. So we are here, like you're in New York or Connecticut, I'm in Florida, and there's so many spiritist groups and churches and things like that. They got together and they had to do this work to talk and to have this conversation they wouldn't otherwise if we didn't have this to talk online. I think about the Metropolitan Opera, for instance. They all this places that have great music, and you only have access if you can pay for it, either going or paying on streaming, and they decided to release for free until now. And they were overwhelmed by the fact that hundreds of thousands of people are still watching, and they thought that no one liked opera. But no, actually no one can pay for opera, but they actually like it. And then perhaps they didn't know, and then they like that. So people start to find out that they like new things or they have new interests. They just didn't know, but now it's there. So a variety of great things. And and these companies that they find themselves kind of forced to give things for free or because someone did and now I have to do. And then you find out it was worth it. So all these great things that also happen on top of all others that don't look good. But I see many wonderful things that people that change it the way that they view things, their tastes. We need to keep changing or we just get stagnate on it. So I do see many benefits on that, actually.
You know what? You touched such an important point that I just now I start thinking about it after your commenting. Is even in terms, I'm like yourself. I don't follow the news for a long time because I hate the bad news at 11 and etc. I want to go to bed with all this bad, and it really stays with me. But the thing is now, people are, even the reporters, they are announcing so much more, the good things, the good deeds that are happening. And that normally always happened. There are always good deeds happening, but we never heard about it. Now we are hearing about all those initiatives, about the first responders, about, so many good things that people, acts of compassion and goodness, and thinking about, how can, like you said, bring art to people that could not afford. And now we know, and now we have news that are good news. And I think this is also part of building up this new being that we have to become, in terms of start believing more in the world. Because before, when you heard the news, it was like, the world is getting worse. And we know this is not true. The world is not getting worse. It's only getting better. Even if we remain a little bit stuck on the same place, but it's only getting better. But it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't show like that. And now it is showing also, the acts of, compassion and presence and people. And it makes us believe more in people, believe more in some initiatives. And I think all of that also changes the mental outlook that we have been for so long. And now we may have faith again. But yeah, that's very, very important for us to think about as well. So many things that we can already see. Imagine what we are not seeing in the near future, what we are not seeing. Like, they say, the trees, the cleansing of the pollution, the animal kingdom and all of that, they are benefiting already. I mean, these are things that we are already seeing. But what about what we are not, especially on the core of the human being? So that's wonderful. Okay, so it's time for us to end. If you could do our final prayer, please.
Okay, yes. To our beloved Father, Jesus Christ, to our spiritual benefactors, all that have contributed to this meeting today, illuminating our thoughts, helping us to understand, more important to put into practice, to work toward this work of light, understanding each other, understanding that God is here with us. He is the one, the only one that knows what is good for us. Let's take all that we receive from Joanna de Angelis. Such a beautiful, beautiful message here. May we use it every day in our lives, helping our families in all that surrounds us. And let's continue throughout the week for prayers for all our brothers and sisters that are going through this pandemic. But always remembering that prayers of most important are essential now and always. And always remember that God is with us, to have faith and to pray with all our hearts. Thank you, dear Lord. Thank you for the teachings Thank you for the teachers that are here with us, giving us so much light and understanding. Have mercy on all of us, dear Father. We thank you and we love you. And with that in mind, we ask permission to close this meeting today. So be it.